Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2017, we saw the Prime Minister, with great fanfare, announce the National Housing Strategy. He said it was going to be life-changing, that it would be transformational. That was 2017. Since then, we know that house prices have doubled, and we've just heard the opposition whip remind us that there are about 9 in 10 young people in this country that don't own a home, who don't believe they will ever have that opportunity. Rents have doubled in this country. That is if you can find a place to rent, because, of course, vacancy rates are now at an all-time low, generally hovering around 1% across the country. And inflation is skyrocketing, which, of course, means that interest rates have spiked, which cause mortgage rates to go up. Mortgages have doubled. People with variable rate mortgages have seen their payments double. And those with fixed rate mortgages who are going to renew those mortgages in the next several months or years are worried that they're not going to be able to afford their home anymore. This in the midst of a housing crisis. And homelessness, Mr. Speaker, is on the rise. There are tent communities now in cities large and small all across the country. There are new immigrants and students who are living in homeless shelters like Covenant House in Toronto. On average, 3 homeless Canadians die every week on the streets of Toronto. So, the National Housing Strategy has certainly been life-changing for many. It's been transformational, not the transformation I suspected they had hoped. You know, and it's not just the big cities, of course. I represent a smaller community. I'd like to say it's as beautiful as South Surrey White Rock, maybe more, but it's also very expensive there. 40% of households, though, in Parry Sound Muskoka spend more than 30% of their income on shelter costs. The median employment income in Parry Sound Muskoka is about 20% lower than the provincial average across Ontario. The vacancy rate for rentals in Muskoka is 0.65%. That means there's nothing to rent. People are stretched thin because they can't afford to pay for groceries because of the carbon tax. I get calls every week, and I'm sure everyone in this House gets the calls as well, from constituents that are facing those high prices at the grocery store. They feel the pinch of the carbon tax every time they go to the grocery store, every time they fill up their car, every time they need to, get more fuel to heat their homes. Mr. Speaker, the people in my riding don't think this government cares. And it's hard for me to tell them otherwise. With an ever-increasing carbon tax that punishes rural Canadians and the most vulnerable in our society, there is no relief in sight. And on grocery prices, it is no wonder prices are so high. There's the carbon tax 1, carbon tax 2.0. That's on the farmer that grows the food, the trucker that delivers the food. It's a tax on food. And so here we are today, where over the summer, the Prime Minister shuffled his cabinet, got a new Minister of Housing. Someone started to wake up and realize that there is, in fact, a crisis in housing, and that they got to do something because what they have done clearly isn't working. But of course, not before the Prime Minister took an opportunity while announcing a few units in Hamilton to deflect from his failure by saying it's not primarily his responsibility. So that was life-changing transformational program in 2017. Today, in July 2023, he told Canadians it's not really his fault. And now, today, we have Bill C-56, which is supposed to be big new change coming to the housing portfolio. So what do they offer for housing in this bill? Well, they are finally delivering on a promise they made back in the 2015 campaign to give back the GST on the construction of new rental buildings. That's it. That's all. That we were expecting big change from the new minister and big change coming from the Prime Minister. They get it now. This is what we've got. What's not in the bill, Mr. Speaker? How about some CMHC reforms? The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, which reports to this government, might be one of the biggest gatekeepers in the whole country. I know lots of colleagues around this House who have heard from people in their ridings, whether it's small community groups that are trying to get housing built, whether it's smaller municipalities, about the stories of anguish when they go to the CMHC to try to get their ridiculously complicated funding application approved. The bureaucratic hurdles at the CMHC and in Ottawa, often they give up. And if they do get a response, they often don't even get a reason why they've been rejected. So you see builders and community groups that don't really have the resources to battle with the CMHC going back to the drawing table without much really guidance on what they've got to do differently. And it's like this, of course, because this government has allowed the CMHC to grow and grow and grow over the last 8 years, and they kill more projects than they approved. So the member of Carleton, leader of the opposition, put forward a bill that this C-56 certainly doesn't address, but it would provide accountability to Canadians for the CMHC in Ottawa. Accountability for 60 days. That the CMHC have, on average, 60 days to respond to an application. We'll put the executives at the CMHC on notice. We'll put their bonuses on the line and say, you have to meet these timelines. Because in a crisis, you pull at every stop. It's a bold target, but in a housing crisis, can't be some bureaucrat in Ottawa that's blocking homes. They have to be looking for every way possible to get more homes built. And speaking of targets, that's another thing that's missing from this bill. For too long, this federal government is happy to give massive federal transfers to cities to help them build all kinds of infrastructure with no strings attached to get more housing built. We need to tip the scales back in favor of the builders, not the blockers, because there is a scarcity of housing. There is a huge lack of supply. There's not enough townhomes, not enough triplexes, not enough single-family homes, and not nearly enough density around transit. We need to make housing abundant again in this country. And what's missing in this bill is any target for the municipalities to meet. Liberals are happy to fly around the country and hand out a check here and a check there for a few hundred units here and a few hundred units there, and that's as far as it gets. They don't have targets, and of course we see no results. So on this side of the House, we believe in results. On that side of the House, they seem to believe in photo ops and talking points, and that's not working. We need accountability, incentives, and targets. Mr. Speaker, to me, it's pretty clear that this government just doesn't get it. Last Minister of Housing couldn't even admit that housing was a crisis in this country. The new minister started out doing what the last minister did by trumpeting on social media about the great success they're having on housing. Then he went on a little housing retreat in PEI and listened to the experts, some experts who actually proposed some pretty good ideas. And then he went to London for another retreat, teased the media on the way in about there's going to be something really big. We've never done this before in housing. And then he comes back out and announces the same old funding from a program they started a year ago that's delivered no results. So it's more of the same. Photo ops, meaningless photo ops. Announce a little bit of money, no plans, no targets, no goals, and no results. So to the young people shafted by this government, to all the seniors on fixed incomes worried about how they're going to get by, to the new Canadians who come here and feel like they've been sold a bill of goods, I say I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we have a government that pretends to care but doesn't really deliver. And to this House and this government, I say Bill C-56 is a cruel joke. It's not serious. They give themselves lots of pats on the back, but there's no results. The proof, Mr. Speaker, of their failure, it's in the dismay of the young people who've given up the hope of owning a home. It's in the tear-filled eyes that I see when seniors come to me and feel ashamed that the food bank they used to donate to, they now have to get their groceries from. It's in the proof of the tent cities. That's where the proof is, where people living in tents who go to their job can't find a home. The proof is in the number of homeless Canadians who die in the streets, Mr. Speaker. There is a housing crisis in this country, and Bill C-56 is further proof that this government just doesn't get it. Thank you.